Jnanatimidandasya Jnanam Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nam Shreshtam Manumapi Satchiputram Atra Sarupam Rupam Tasya Grajam Rupurim Mathurim Gostavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratitha Kripaya Sri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Mole Ratnamaladiti Nirajita Padapankajanta Ajimukta Kulairupashyamanam Paritashtam Harinam Samshrayami Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirana Kalho Samarpaitumunnato Chvalarasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Khandadesh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambharo Diyavaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suhridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostute He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunam Vrittavahini Kripaya Nijapadabja Dasyam Mayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Bihinaya Paradhalakshay Hitastakamadittarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Gaudiya Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Samaved Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanam Hari Hari Bol. Good morning to all of you. Welcome. Thank you so much. Those connecting online. In this case, Gauri Gopika, welcome. And we're continuing with our series of lectures. And what is Anartha-nivritti? Really, right? What is Anartha-nivritti is one question. What is Anartha-nivritti? Really, it's another thing. We are talking more, trying to talk a little more seriously about it, more in detail, more honestly. And the way we have been doing that is by exploring some, false beliefs or beliefs we may have, or ideas we may have, or values we may hold in connection to love, God, soul, and matter. That's the mood of the exploration these days, and trying to debunk any false values That's Anartha-nivritti, actually, getting rid of false values, false beliefs. So the proper conception, proper ideas, and therefore the proper practice led by those ideas can lead us to the proper fruit as a result. So we had the first class of introduction, and yesterday we were exploring the first. This is based on the key paradigm shifts appearing at the end of each chapter of my recent book, Evolution in Divine Love. So yesterday we started with love, the supreme reality, reality's final expression, love. So we went through each one of the paradigm shifts. I will just mention them. I won't explain them again because I will be basically doing again the same class. So yesterday, first we mentioned the importance of a coherent definition of love. We need a clear definition of what we are talking about when we are talking about love. So we mentioned that's not a temporary feeling, some oxytocin shot, but but a lifestyle, an attitude to life, an intentional culture of well-wishing for the object of our affection, free from ulterior motives, profoundly intentional. Then we spoke about how love is not just applied to God as the center, but it has to be all-encompassing and applied to everyone else, including us. So there's place for self-love in divine love, in the context of bhakti. What else? We talked about how unconditional love is not only receiving an undeserved gift, but also we explained how love grows and expands beyond conditions. No matter what you put in front of true love, it can only grow. And then we get to the next one, which was in that connection, true love has no opposite. Love cannot devolve into something opposite to it, but can only become more of what it is. And fear, hatred, all the things are basically absence of love. But real love has no opposite. It just continues to evolve and expand. Then we briefly touch upon love as potency plus potential, right? So any potency has the potential to become more. It's what it is plus all that it can be. So it's very important that we have this idea of becomingness, not only beingness, what something is, but what something has the potential to become. Then we explore briefly how love can, at one time, bring total fulfillment, but also perpetual thirst for more, satisfaction and holy dissatisfaction, in the sense that you can always love more, you can always extend more and more that experience. In that context, we mentioned how love is the ultimate reality, in the sense that it's the goal, quote unquote, goal to attain, though it's never an end point, for us and for God. Krishna is always pursuing new levels and experiences of love. It's not only just we are after love, but everyone is after love, God included in the equation. Then we also mentioned a few thoughts, and with this we are concluding that God is shaped by love. Remember, God is a byproduct of love, and how the divine form of the divine is somehow sculpted. Oh, I bit my tongue. You're gonna blame anyone in that case, right? No, the tongue is not the fault. Your teeth. It was not my intention. It is what it is. God is shaped by love, right? God's form is sculpted, carved out of certain particular type of bhakti, and He takes different forms to reciprocate with that. And He will take a unique form to reciprocate with the unique love that each single individual will be offering to Him. And then we concluded on the note on Sri Radha, love's tangible form as the divine feminine, as the goddess, as the personification of ever-expanding, ever-evolving love, which sometimes it's more than necessary in the times we're living to reclaim the feminine and to make peace with the feminine in terms of the divine, in terms of our relationship to the world, the earth. All of them are mothers for us, feminine, our own feminine side, and so on and so forth. And last night we continued somehow to explore some of these themes through questions, quests, and explorations. So today we are reaching second chapter of the book. I titled the chapter, Can God Be Updated? I resorted to a little bit modern language. Most of us can relate to the idea of updating. You have your cell phone and all these apps that if you don't download the latest version, the whole thing becomes non-operative. It doesn't work. So it has to keep up to date. So that's God update. Is he constantly being updated by love? Becoming his latest, better possible version in the context of love. So we'll be exploring the corresponding key paradigm shifts from this chapter, which are 8. The other one were 9. So let's see what the exploration takes us today. I hope to not go that long as I did yesterday. I will try to be a little bit more compassionate with your energy and time and mine as well. Let's see. We'll also want to honor where the topic is calling us. So today we'll be continuing exploring Anartha-nivritti, getting rid of false beliefs, false ideas in this context about God. And why this is important. The first key paradigm shift is talking about that. So I will read that one first. But before that, before going to the paradigm shift, let me start with, I'm beginning each chapter with an epigraph. Epigraph is like a quote that you put at the beginning from someone. So this is a quote by someone that I really appreciate. And this book has been really deeply influenced by her. Her name is Ilia Delio. She's a Franciscan nun. She's also a theologian. She's also a scientist. She has 2 PhDs, one in theology, one in science. And she's a very loving person and friend of mine. So I'm including one quote from her. Very interesting. It says like this: change is not contrary to God. Rather, change is integral to God. For God is love, and love is constantly transcending itself toward greater union. By change, I do not mean God becomes something other than God. Rather, God is a continuous becoming in love, driven by the absolute dynamism of divine love itself. Contrary to classical beliefs in God's immutability, God is just changeless, it is precisely because God is capable of change that he embodies absolute love and remains ever faithful in that love. So again, maybe for some of you, some of this language is not so much the Gaudiya Vaishnava lingo, and I think it's healthy that we expose to other ways of saying things that somehow continue to shed light into what's the essence of our own tradition and other sister traditions as well. So we will explore, that's one of the main themes of this chapter. God is changeless, we won't be denying that, but he's not only changeless, he's also ever evolving in love, and how to accommodate this paradox. Because again, if we get the wrong picture about who the divine is, we will call him Krishna or so many other names, we may get the wrong picture about everything else. So that's the first key paradigm shift. It says, misreading the root of reality distorts everything else. Right? God is the source of everything. He's the root of reality. So if you get a wrong picture about the source, the root, you get a wrong picture probably about everything else connected to that root. So the explanation to this key paradigm shift says, God is not merely a possessor of love, he is made of it. Thus, the very root of reality, the sweet absolute, cannot not love. Misunderstanding this essential point distorts our perception of all other aspects of existence. So again, many of the things I'll be sharing today and every other day are connected to things that probably I already shared days before, because it's all interconnected. And this is the first point, right? As we mentioned that yesterday, I remember. God is not only, Krishna not only has love, he is love. He's not just, he's loving. Yeah, he's loving because he's love. He's love personified again. Rasa Vaisaha Rasamhi vayam latvanandi bhavati, says Taittiriya Upanishad. God is love. And when you get to understand and know that God is love, then you can become Anandi. You can be full with Ananda or joy. That's what the Taittiriya Upanishad says. No? The sweet absolute, as I like to refer to Krishna, Srila Siddhar Maharaj uses that phrasing in his Bhagavad Gita commentary. The sweet absolute is love. And when you get it right, so to say, when you read properly who God is, then you attain joy, happiness, fulfillment, meaning, purpose. So, in other words, because if we say God is not love, then the options say, okay, then love will be an optional feature in God. Maybe at times he's loving, and maybe at times he's something else. If he's only loving, if love isn't a feature, it's not the very essence of God. Okay, maybe sometimes Krishna becomes loving, but maybe sometimes he becomes who knows what, and that creates, I will say, big conflict, big instability. And I can say that's a big anartha that many members in our tradition have. They feel, again, as we say, I have to perform, I have to be perfect for Krishna to love me. So if I'm not perfect, then what? Krishna doesn't love me, so he's not love, he's something else. Or if I fail in something, he will get angry. And like I remember talking to a devotee once, she told me, I'm pregnant. It's getting quite difficult for me to finish my 16 rounds. And she started to cry. And I'm so afraid of losing my human form of life at the end of this life because of not being able to finish my rounds. And I was like, stop right there. What are you thinking about? What idea do you have of Krishna? Like, oh, you failed your 16 rounds. You become a frog in the next lifetime, right? You pregnant lady, you didn't finish your round. Go back to the animal kingdom to learn your lesson. Again, what idea of God we are having? Right? Because again, we think, okay, maybe at times he's loving, but at times he may be cruel and some type of dictator and very easily wrathful. So we have to appease God. Many people have that idea. Just do sacrifice or do whatever so Krishna doesn't get that angry. Come on. Right? That's the first one. Love is not a characteristic that Krishna sometimes enacts. No. At times, okay, let's be loving for a while. No. Again, it's the very essence that defines who he is. The nature of the ultimate reality is love. You cannot change. He cannot, as I say, he cannot not love. He cannot go against his own essence. If you're made of love from tip to toe, you cannot not love. But again, to misunderstand that is to build an entire theology based on distorted foundations. And that will affect our worldview, how we see the world, how we see ourselves. As I gave examples the other day, if God is an easily angry person that sometimes is loving, sometimes not, is a little whimsical, who knows how he will wake up tomorrow with the left foot. I'm subject to who knows what reaction, and whatever happens in my life, though, that's Krishna chastising me, and this world is a prison for me to pay my original sin, and who knows what, right? And I'm unlovable, and I'm bad, and we are all inherently flawed, and we project the whole set of misconceptions. One anartha brings another anartha, and we read Bhagavatam and Gita and scripture through those lenses, and we like color the entire reality because we are misreading the root of reality. So that's the first key paradigm shift that I mentioned here. Like, as yesterday we started, let's define love coherently, so we don't speak about love with some wrong idea in mind. Now let's get God right. Let's get a coherent idea of who the sweet absolute is as love. That's the most healthy beginning point. As we said the other day, the best healthy beginning point to define who we are, you are developed of Krishna. So a healthy point to begin with God, he is love. Right? He's a lover of everything. Any thoughts before we move on to the next one, or any ideas of how this distortion can affect our lives, or has affected your life, or you have seen affecting others' lives? Or
I see from Christianity, because I grew up in a Christian family, this guilt, and Jesus had to die for our sins on the cross, and so this cannot only distort the life of one person, so can make up a whole culture of guilt and shame, and so this is so important.
Yeah. The other day I remember you mentioned Christianity, and of course not every Christian thinks like that. Again, I'm connected with many Christians who are not at all in favor of original sin, but actually original blessing, which is God loves you from time without beginning, and trying to, like, again, heal and reclaim the essence of their tradition. But even as you mentioned, some more toxic readings of Christianity, many of us, maybe most of us, almost all of us, but many of us may have been brought up in a Christian framework, and many may carry unconsciously some of those ideas and project them into Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
It's ingrained in society, even without detecting it.
Yeah. A few days. Yes. And a few days ago, one devotee said, Maharaj, maybe we have to do some serious on how our toxic reading of Christianity is many times projected into Gaudiya Vaishnava theology. How many times we end up speaking about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but actually that's our filters, and misreading of other traditions, so to say, and we end up misreading our tradition, which is, I don't know if we will end up doing that, but just saying that openly in case someone wants to take that invitation. Because it's part of Anartha-nivritti, all that, right? Like gaining awareness of, I'm bringing this cultural baggage with me, or this, who knows, some scars that I received, and I'm filtering Shastra or tradition or Krishna with that. Because again, on one side, we receive so much emphasis. Krishna is loving, Krishna is an ocean of mercy, he's so sweet, he's so that, but still at the same time, very contradictory. We will think, he will make me a frog in the next lifetime if I fail one day chanting my 16 rounds. So it's how can you put those things together? But somehow we hold those contradictory views. So it's clear, it's important to gain awareness of how we may be holding utterly counterintuitive, contradictory views, and clarify what is what. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Now we enter more into this apparent dichotomy: God changeless, God ever fresh, and how the two actually coexist in perfect peace in Krishna, hopefully in us as well. So we'll begin with changelessness. So the second key paradigm shift says God's changelessness is nuanced. So in other words, he's not just changeless. The sweet absolute remains unchanging in that he exists eternally as a non-dual being beyond all fleeting variations. He has always been God and will forever be God. That doesn't change. Moreover, his nature is changeless precisely because it is grounded in an ever-evolving love. So what doesn't change is he's always evolving in love, making space for the dynamic essence that defines his boundless expansiveness. So again, there are many sections in the scripture which says God is changeless. So in writing a book about evolution of love and ever-evolvingness, I'm not trying to say, no, he's not changeless. He's changeless, but in which sense he's changeless? So we were talking yesterday briefly about omnipotence, but in which sense he's omnipotent? Not to the point that he's canceling free will, because that starts to mess up with other things that are also changeless. We have free will that cannot be taken away. So in which sense we can say Krishna is omnipotent? In which sense we can say Krishna is change? What doesn't change about Krishna? Again, very basically what doesn't change is that he's always Krishna. God is always God. No, it's not that someone else will take up the throne or the post. No? Krishna, you have been dethroned. Here comes a new guy. He's God now. No, no, that doesn't change. No, that doesn't change. His essence remains grounded in love. That doesn't change. As we say, God is love. That doesn't change. As we will see, love is always evolving and in that sense changing. So we could say Krishna is always changing in his experience of love that is ever new and ever fresh. So again, we are entering into paradoxical thinking. He's changeless and he's ever new, both at the same time. We need to keep both, not choose one at the price of the other. Mm-hmm. And the fact that God doesn't change, that's like a stable foundation on which his ever-evolvingness takes place. So a very firm, changeless foundation. Krishna is always Krishna. Krishna is always love. He doesn't go through the fleeting variations, as I mentioned, that we may go as conditioned soul. So who am I? What I am? I'm a woman. I'm a dog. I'm this. I'm a frog. I may be a frog. I have a deep existential crisis. I don't. Anyhow, changing bodies, reincarnate. Krishna's not going through that. So in that sense, he's changeless. That's one of the main ways Scripture refers to someone being changeless. That one doesn't undergo all these changes of self-perception that we may go in the conditioned state. But again, that he's changeless in all those ways doesn't mean that he doesn't experience any type of development, expansion, newness, novelty, surprise, wonder, because if not, we will have just a very boring God, like very static, not ecstatic, but static, like a block, monolithic, a block of stuff, a block of marble. Here you have your God. Doesn't move, doesn't change, doesn't feel anything. Not because changeless implies all the things. If you do not change, you do not feel anything, because feeling something implies some change. If I feel compassion for you, something is moving in me, something is changing. So if you say God is changeless, that's a delicate statement because it has lots of implications that I will be unpacking later, that God doesn't feel anything, God doesn't experience any growth, anything, doesn't feel. So we don't want that God, just in case. So I will be resorting in the book to grammar to speak about this. God as changeless will be God as a noun, and God as ever evolving is God as a verb. A verb indicates like action, a movement. One Jewish writer will say God as godding. Like you say ing to indicate playing, doing. So God is godding. It's not just God, the noun, but it's action, something's taking place. So again, that doesn't deny. Scripture use different terms. God is abikriyam, kutashta, unchanging, changeless, immutable, however you like to call it, but in certain ways. That's why I say nuance changelessness. In certain ways, he's changeless, not in every single absolute way. And as I said the other day, Rupa Goswami himself, when he gives 64 qualities of Krishna, at one point he says he's changeless. But it's interesting because then when he explains what he means by changeless, he says he's always situated in his eternal form. So that's what he means by changeless, right? He doesn't mean that he changes in every way, but he has an eternal form, no? And Krishna doesn't devolve into something else. He doesn't reincarnate and attains a different form like we may do life after life. So in that sense, he's changeless, not in every sense. But as I said also, after saying he's changeless, in his list of 64 qualities, 2 qualities after, he says he's nityanutana, which means ever fresh. So he's laying the foundation. He's changeless. He's always love. He always has an eternal form. He always is all attractive. And on that foundation, he's ever fresh, ever new. ever young. Nava now we have now tradition. Krishna is eternally young, eternally fresh, ever new. So again, sometimes we need to stay with those two things together for some time. Let's sit with God's changelessness and ever newness. Experience it. See what comes to you. Maybe there's some tension, like, well, I want only to cherry pick one or the other. How to integrate? Try to hold space, as we were talking these days. It's all about holding space or paradox. So again, I think this is an important feature of Anartha-nivritti, getting rid of the false notion that God is changeless in every way. So nothing changed. He doesn't experiencing anything new. There's no surprise for Krishna, for Krishna. No, there's no wonder, nothing new no new love to experience. So that's a very misleading notion, as we were talking yesterday about Sri Chaitanya, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna wanting to explore the heart of Radha. That's something that he doesn't know. Now we'll go there in a minute. God's omniscience, and he doesn't know some things. He wants to discover them, and there's no end to that. So for me, this idea is very exciting. It makes for a very exciting God, a God who is at wonder, marveling at things. Any thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah.
Is it clear? Does it make sense?
Krishna says, I guess, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in the Bhagavad Gita, the logic is that I'm beyond logic.
The logic, sorry?
The logic is that I am beyond logic.
I am means that Krishna is beyond
says
logic.
that.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Which doesn't mean that we cannot talk about him, because we can easily also bring this type of ideas to cancel our conversation. Like, he's beyond logic, don't think. No, we may be suppressing all forms of critical thinking that are necessary in the name of Krishna, and everything is beyond thinking. So stop thinking. I mean, there's a moment to say stop thinking. I mean, it's good to, like Brahma said yesterday when I told you he thinks a lot, but at one point he realized this cannot be thought. I need to fall at the ground and pray. But logic is there also. We have an intellect, we have faculties, so we have to make as much of a use of them as we can, while also being intelligent enough to realize the limits of intelligence. Logic enough to realize the limits of logic, right? So when the scriptures say, things like Tarka Apratishtana, this famous line from Vedanta Sutra, Upanishads, Mahabharata. Tarka, which means logic, Apratishtana. Through logic, Apratishta. Pratishta means position. Apratishta means you are in you end up nowhere, basically, no position. So Tarka, logic takes you nowhere. But again, that's in connection to do not depend on that exclusively to grasp infinity. That's the idea. It's not do not use logic at all. Because you go to the books of the Goswamis and they are so experts in logic and Nyaya, and all these teachings they have so much logic. But again, we have to balance that. How to use logic and how to know when to let go of logic. How to engage my intellect and how to humbly put my intellect to rest and surrender, so to say. So it's not black or white. It's not be lazy. And we have this famous verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta Baliya Chittana Kara Alas, Ihaite Krishna Lage Sudrida Manas. He says, Krishna, Siddhanta Baliya Chitta, try to understand the Siddhanta, try to understand the proper conclusions of things, what we are trying to do here. And then he says, Nakara Alas, don't be lazy. So try to make the best effort you can with the faculties you have. I mean, it's not that everyone has to be a PhD or whatever, but whatever faculties you have, try to invest them with sincere effort to grasp reality through those faculties, knowing that the grasping does not fully depend on those faculties, but also you have those faculties, so consecrate them to Krishna, right? He said, by doing so, Krishna will become more established in your mind and heart.
So there are different levels of logic also.
Yeah.
According to the system it refers. And
Yeah.
so once I came to the, we try to understand Krishna by what we think it's our own logic. It's our logic. So then we come to a point where it doesn't work anymore. But then on the other hand, I experienced that it's very logical that Krishna is changeless and changing all the time at the same time. It's actually a must. So if one surrenders to Krishna, I have this impression, if I surrender to Krishna because I couldn't go further, then a new kind of logic developed, a spiritual kind of logic. And then this is very natural. What you are telling here now is very natural and very satisfying to the heart and even to the intellect.
Yeah, that's what we were saying the other day. Now we need to see things as Krishna sees them. So one way of this is also we have to develop the type of logic that Krishna has. He has his own type of logic, right? Like we were yesterday sharing this Govardhan Lila and the logic of the Brajavasis, if you will. Like for them, it makes total sense. For Yashoda, it's like, you're hungry lifting that heel, right? That's her logic. Like, I feed you. For other person, that's madness. But what's logic for some person may not be logic for others, right? But yeah, there are different degrees of that. And
Krishna says to Dami Buddhi Yogam. So Krishna, it's Krishna's logic. When I come to the point to accept that it's Krishna's logic, it's actually one part of his love towards me, an aspect of love towards me that he is giving me this logic. I can transcend mundane logic.
Yeah, there's a term that Rupa Goswami uses, which is Shastra Yukti, which means logic. Yukti is another word for logic applied to Shastra. Shastra will be like revelation. So, and revelation doesn't use the same type of logic sometimes that we may have. So, Shastra Yukti means like applying our logic to the trans logic of revelation and aligning with that. And then, as you say, we're developing a new way of making sense of things, so to say, right? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next one. Since we're all agreeing with this new type of logic, then from God's changelessness, let's go now to God is also ever fresh, right? Because for normal logic, okay, God is changeless. That makes sense. He cannot change because he's God. For more nuanced logic, okay, we can get that, but don't lose the other half of the equation. He's always evolving. So God is also ever fresh. God's nature continuously unfolds in ever-evolving ways without compromising his inherent changelessness. Since the divine cannot change to become less than himself, any change he undergoes in the evolution of love is always a progression toward greater fullness. So this is an important point, because many times we think if God changes, it means he was not ideal before the change. Something like that. No? Or change indicates something. Okay, it was not perfect before the change then. Again, logic, a type of logic, right? For a type of logic, any change indicates, or any improvement indicates it was not perfect before. Again, our ideas of perfection, right? End point, fixed maximum. But in our tradition, no, God is perfect as a foundation, and he becomes more perfect and most perfect. Like Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Krishna in Dwarka is perfect, in Mathura is more perfect, in Vrindavan is most perfect. But always the word perfect is there, right? Om Purnam, Ada Purnam, Idam Purnat Purnam, Adachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. Everything, in one sense, that verse says everything is complete. God is complete, whatever emanates from God is complete. But everything can become further complete. On the foundation of completeness, there's always the potential for greater achievement in completeness. Because again, completeness or perfection is not just a fixed maximum. But all this demands going beyond a certain type of logic, which is more like mathematical. Perfection means 100% done. No, there's There's more beyond that, as we will see in a moment.
So Krishna is not like an app on the iPhone, on the phone.
Exactly.
Because it's ever evolving, but
Yeah.
it will never become perfect.
Yeah, I just give the example of God being updated in the sense that the apps in your iPhone will never finish. You will always need to download the new version.
Yes.
It will never say, okay, this is the final version.
Yes.
No, in that sense,
It
it's
will go on
ongoing,
endlessly.
ongoing. So yeah. So again, this quality of Krishna being ever new, ever fresh, does not contradict his changelessness. Again, we say by changeless, we say his love, he's all attractive, that doesn't change. And because his all attractiveness doesn't change, he cannot not grow in beauty and charm. He cannot not. He must continue to grow, because what doesn't change about him is that he's all attractive and his love. So perpetual renewal. That's the finest expression. We could say even that perpetual renewal in Krishna is the finest expression of his changelessness. The ultimate implication of God being changeless is that he's always become more beautiful and more charming. And to love is to evolve. God is love, and to love is to evolve, because love's nature is always growing. As we say yesterday, this when going to the meaning of Brahman, right? Brahman is this word for the absolute in the Upanishads. It's almost the main word for the divine in the Upanishads. Attract. But at least that chair, so I don't lose sight of you. Yeah. I don't want to forget that you are here with us. Thank you. So
this idea, when you ask, it's not upgradable. Of course he is, because we understand God now. We understand God. We understand there is a God.
Yeah.
So that's perfect and complete. We
Yeah.
have understood.
Yeah.
But the more we become pure, the more we make progress, we will understand God more and better and deeper. So from our point of view, of course, there's more to know about God, because depending on our qualification.
Yeah.
So also from that point of view, he is definitely changing, because for us he's changing. He was yesterday that kind of God. Now we understand he is more than what we thought at first.
Yeah. Krishna became more Krishna, right? The all attractive is now more attractive. So Krishna is Krishnaizing himself, becoming more beautiful. And there are even some quotes, I share them mostly here, I think, but also in Radical Personalism, that not only we can be at wonder at God's unfolding, but he himself, in one verse of the Bible, say he cannot measure the limit of his glories, because there is no limit. They're always growing. So God himself is at wonder at that. We have many verses in the scripture. I don't know, Krishna being in a palace and his image becomes reflected in a pillar, and he's like attracted to that. He's not a narcissistic person. It's just like, what's going on there? And it's ever evolving. What's happening in that mirror is always growing. So he becomes like one. It's at wonder at his own ever evolvingness. So how much we can remain at awe in all that, right? So, and as we say yesterday, again, going to Brahman, this word Brahman, which many times we relate to unmovable, immutable, no activity, no form, no nothing, absolute. Actually, Brahman means brim too. Interestingly, in Sanskrit, the word is brim, but you have in English the word brim, right? Someone is brimming with emotion, like something very brimming, like trembling, like moving. I'm making a play of words between Sanskrit and English. Maybe in German, I cannot do that play of words. I cannot do that in Spanish for sure. But brim in Sanskrit means to expand and to make others expand. That's the nature of the absolute. That's the meaning of Brahman. And that's for us why Brahman ultimately finds its ultimate expression in Bhagavan, Krishna's two Bhagavan. So yeah, God is changeless. God is ever evolving. That will be another way of speaking about achintya bhed abhed tattva. Oneness and difference, changelessness and movement and dynamism, right? Both are there. We don't want to cancel one. When talking about Bhagavan, there's also the impersonal feature of the divine and the personal one. It's not there's only one. We generally tend to go, okay, which is the one, the true one, which is the best, the worst. No? For us, someone may be the best, but for someone, again, that's another conversation. But for those who have some scars for impersonal Brahman, that's the best for them. And for some others, say, no, for me, Narayan in Vaikuntha is the best. And there's a place in eternity for that. So we shouldn't be too anxious to convince them they are wrong. Krishna-das Kaviraj Goswami say that every devotee feels their connection with the Absolute is the best, and everyone is correct. He doesn't say, and everyone is wrong except for those who are Gaudiya Vaishnavas. He's not saying that. So yeah, achintya abed. Now there's changelessness, and there is dynamism at the same time, coexisting in an achintya way. Achintya can mean paradoxical also. Sometimes we translate it as inconceivable, which doesn't mean we cannot understand it in any way, but we can just understand it with a different logic, with a different way of thinking, resorting to revelation. Let me share one short verse that I quote here from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, from Sanatana Goswami's book, about this point, how in one verse he's saying clearly how God is unchanging, how he's ever evolving. Just for those who are doubting at this point, is this an invention of Padmanabha Swami, all this stuff, or is it still in Shastra? So Sanatana Goswami says, although the Supreme Lord is always one and unchanging, at every moment he brings forth hundreds of newer and newer varieties of transcendental charm, both in himself and in his love. He does this by his potencies, inconceivable to everyone else. It's like a very encapsulated version of what we're talking about here. He's talking about one and unchanging, and bringing newer and newer versions and expressions of love, and all that in one way is unconceivable. Again, it doesn't respond to normal logic. Let's put it that way. But it doesn't mean that we cannot understand it in any way. We just need to take shelter in another way of thinking, in a paradoxical thinking, trans-rational, not irrational, not only rational either, trans-rational. Okay, so far we mentioned these first three paradigm shifts. First, if you misread the root of reality God, you misread probably everything else, then God is changeless. But in certain ways, now God is ever fresh. And again, all this is debunking false ideas, false beliefs we may have unconsciously or unconsciously about Krishna. Now comes the fourth one, which we have touched briefly now a few minutes ago. God's perfection is not a fixed maximum. I mentioned that yesterday. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. Probably we need to talk again now. Again, many of the things is stuna nika nana nyaya. This is the logic of pounding the post. If you want to have a post fixed, you probably won't pound the post just once, like, okay, the post is fixed. You have to look 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's clear. So sometimes we need to emphasize some things more than once, like some of the verses we were saying now yesterday. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra, Lava Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Hare Nam. Sometimes what's going on? Is Vyasadeva stuttering? Like he's saying the same thing over again? It sounds redundant. No, we need to listen to that a few times. This is one of those. God's perfection is not a fixed maximum. Divine perfection embraces limitless potential for further perfection, continuously surpassing its own fullest expression in love. So again, Krishna is not trapped in a finished state. He's not a finished product that he cannot become something else. That's, in one sense, that the antithesis of perfection. Krishna is so perfect that he cannot go beyond what he is. He cannot experiencing any newer thing. The more you explain perfection in that way, the more imperfect it sounds. Right? It's very interesting because I know that many of us may even unconsciously try to defend God's perfection. He doesn't change. He doesn't move, because changing implies he was not perfect to begin with. So he's always perfect. He cannot move. But the more we try to defend God's perfection in that way, the more imperfect we are making him. So this is again another way of thinking, another logic. God's perfection includes the capacity for ever deeper expressions of that perfection. He is perfect to begin with, and on that foundation, his perfection continues like to blossom, like a spiral. A spiral, a circle, right? Spiral is like circle moving. Circles are symbols of perfection, right? And Krishna is expanding like a spiral. It's a circle already perfect, but ever expanding. It's not just moving in circles always to the same place, because that will be like boring. Like sometimes I don't know if in German, but in English they have this expression, I'm moving in circles. Like I feel I'm going nowhere. So Krishna is moving in circles, but these are spiral circles. So every time the circle completes, it's broader, deeper, bigger, more expansive.
That's also how we heal, no? Our traumas. It's always like a layer more and a layer more.
Yeah, yeah. And even in our practice, right? In our spiritual practice, sometimes we may feel, oh, I'm again in the same place or in the same situation. But in one sense, it's not the same. It's the same in the sense, okay, a circle, but you're not the same person as you were the last time you were in that situation. So it's important that we understand, yeah, I'm moving in circles, but in spiraling circles. So there's a new thing to learn and embrace here. I'm never the same. Krishna's never the same. Because if not, we can get very easily frustrated. Oh, I'm moving in circles. No, that is, again, spiraling. So again, true perfection is not a fixed maximum. No? That's why I mentioned that in my book. In numbering, going to numbers for a moment, generally the number we use for perfection is 100, like 100%. That indicates completeness. But the main number with which Krishna identifies 108, which for me indicates there's a 100 there plus something else. So it's perfection plus. And interestingly, the 8, if you put it horizontally, is a symbol for infinity, right? So 108, yeah, perfection plus infinite potential for further perfection. Astotter asat, when we say astotter 108, that's the God number, if you will, which indicates perfection, but it's an infinite potential for that. So yeah, God is perfect, but his perfection, again, is not static. He's there fixed in that end point. There's nothing else but ecstatic.
When my daughter was about 5 years old, she said something to me. She said, Mama, Krishna is eternity plus one.
We have to learn. We have to listen to our kids. So much to learn. They get it more right than us. Yeah, because again, a kid's logic operates differently than an adult's logic. So they are probably closer to this type of logic that makes sense in another way, right? So I'd like to share with you a quote by in this connection. What's the nature of God's perfection? What they are the implications of the type of perfection that actually Krishna has. This is a quote by Dr. Abiel Kapoor. Maybe you heard of him. His name is Adi Keshav Das, disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wrote many interesting books about philosophy of Sri Chaitanya and the saints of Braj and saints of Bengal and so on. Very. Oh, right. Beautiful.
Watching one day in whole Vrindavan, many places, asking many preachers and evening time.
Okay.
Get the book and get.
Yes, of course. So he says the following, very interesting. Pay attention, very philosophically refined and poetic. He says, the very nature of God's perfection in love imposes a strange kind of limitation upon him. Truly speaking, love can never be perfect, though it may be limitless. By its very nature, it is imperfect. It is never satisfied with itself. In that sense, imperfect. The more love one has, the more one longs for it. Love is essentially dynamic. It is ever growing, ever trying to overreach itself. Because God's love is limitless, not unlimited, his hunger for love is also limitless. To satisfy his limitless hunger, his effort is equally limitless. A very beautiful way of saying how Krishna is always hungry and thirsty and pursuing more of that. And that takes him to newer layers of perfection. That's the point. So anyhow, some thoughts regarding this fourth key paradigm shift. God's perfection is not fixed maximum. Does it make sense in the new way of making sense of things? Okay. So let's continue with the next one. The fifth one, which again is one of the classical implications of believing that God is only changeless. He doesn't move, he doesn't feel, because feeling means changing from one state to another. So God is not, and we talked about that yesterday briefly, though not with this term. God is not entirely impassible. Maybe this is a new word for some of you. Impassible, not impossible, impassible with A, which means he basically is not touched by other people's experience. He's not moved by what happens to others. So some theologians or some people in some traditions think God is that. He's not affected or not, he cannot experience what others are experiencing. Connected to this idea, he's changeless, right? But here we are saying, paradigm shift, God is not entirely impassible. The sweet absolute experiences joy and sorrow in response to others, feeling profound compassion and empathy while remaining unaffected by ignorance or illusion. So again, this is a nuanced thing, as we say yesterday. Krishna is never a conditioned soul, right? He never becomes affected by the gunas and have this type of confusion that we may have. So in that sense, he doesn't have a first-hand experience of what it means to be a conditioned soul. Remember the example I gave yesterday with my mother's pregnancy and loss of the pregnancy, and I can empathize with her. I can be compassionate, but I may, even when I'm not having the full experience of what it means to lose a pregnancy in this lifetime. So in the same way, Krishna may not have the first-hand experience of what it means to be a conditioned soul, but that doesn't prevent him from understanding that we are suffering and empathizing and connecting with us and giving so many wonderful instructions that he gives for us to deal with our suffering. If he wouldn't have a clue what's going on in our hearts, how he could speak things in the Gita and other texts that help us to understand our own suffering. So in that sense, God is impassible only in the sense that he doesn't have a first-hand experience of our suffering, but he's not entirely impassible in the sense that he doesn't feel anything. He's unmoved, he's untouched, right? Because again, he's love. If God is love, he must be touchable. Love creates empathy and compassion. Classical impassibility portrays God as above all feeling. He's not moved. In some circles, they call that God the unmoved mover. Like God moves, creates, manifests creation, so he's moving things, but he's unmoved. But we will say he's the most moved mover. No, he's dancing, he moves, and he's moved by our experience. So yeah, Krishna is not affected by illusion, but Krishna is affected by love. And being affected by love, one of the expressions of that is compassion. It's not that only Krishna is affected by the love of Brajavasis and his devotees, but he doesn't feel anything for us over here, or for those who are non-devotees, atheists, for those who do not choose to address, like relate to God, he's utterly indifferent to them. No, that's not what the scriptures teach. No, he's feeling as much as he can feel, and he has big capacity for feeling everything. He empathizes, he suffers while witnessing our plights, our suffering, everyone's suffering, and he tries to respond accordingly as much as he can without interfering with our free will. Don't forget that. No? Because again, if I love you and you are suffering, I'm suffering, I try to help you, but I cannot live your life. And I cannot interrupt and cancel your decisions or the fruit of your decision, but I can be there for you and feel for you. So that's how Krishna is doing that in the ways he can do that, right? So yeah, an entirely impossible God, as I mentioned in my book, Making a Play of Words, an impossible God is an impossible God. No, it doesn't make sense again. But again, many times I've heard about this thinking of God in that way. Just the fact that many times when we speak about Krishna, we just do like this. We point like somewhere else. So we are sending him far away. So indirectly that creates, he's not here with us. No, he's not witnessing my journey. He's not accompanying. He's above the clouds, lost in Lila with the gopis, and he doesn't know anything about what's going on here. And I've heard about the saying this sometimes. Krishna, Bhagavan, and I understand and I accept that. In our tradition, Bhagavan is that feature of God that relates to his devotees and to bhakti. So someone say, well, what about those who are not his devotees? Well, Paramatma is that feature. But Paramatma and Bhagavan is the same person. So don't forget that, because sometimes we create a dualistic idea of these are two guys, the separate guys. Now we're talking about the undivisible, non-dual, absolute. Even Brahman is part of that. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdyate, Advaigyan Tattva, undivided wholeness. So whether we are talking about the devotee, non-devotee, whatever, God is present with that person in one feature or another, accompanying their journey and feeling for them in a corresponding way, reciprocating. And if you are practicing Gaudiya Vaishnava, it's not that Krishna is so absorbed with the Brajavasis that he doesn't have time to be with you, to care for you, to be aware of what you are going through. That's not shastric to begin with. That's not correct. So it's important that we get rid of that particular anartha that makes Krishna someone that will only feel for us when we, whatever, attain who knows which degree of perfection. And before that, sorry, he's unavailable, right? You will call and there will be an answering machine. Sorry, you have not attained yet Bhava Bhakti. Call again when you have attained that stage. I'm very busy with my Bhava Bhakta spheres. See you soon. Again, as we were saying, Krishna is fully present in his names, and he's always available for everyone. There, one example. We can give so many examples. So yeah, we need to have this idea clear, right? God is not impossible. He's not an unsensitive. He's not a block of marble that feels nothing for us. He's feeling for us. It's not just we have to feel something for him. He's already feeling something for us. So that may help us to feel something for him. Because he's already feeling something for us. He loves us unconditionally, even when at the time that we say God does not exist. No? Even when we deny his existence, he's already loving us. So becoming aware of that can help us to now return the embrace and feel something for him. He already feels something for us. We can feel something for him, and he will reciprocate that accordingly, back and forth, so on for eternity. Any thoughts on this before we move forward to the next one?
About one thing.
Yes.
We say, or the Shastras say, that God is omniscient and omnipresent.
Next one is omniscience, just in case.
Okay,
but yes,
not even a blade of grass without Krishna's knowing or permitting it. Then why are you saying that Krishna cannot understand our situation because he is not a conditioned soul? He is not going through these changes.
I didn't say he cannot understand our situation. Just to clarify, it's nuance. I'm saying
he has no practical experience of this because he is no conditioned soul.
Yes.
But does he have to be? Because if he's omniscient and omnipresent, he's aware of our situation, of our struggle, our suffering, whatever.
Yes.
He doesn't have to go through these changes in order to feel like us.
Yes, and at the same time, he doesn't lose himself. He doesn't indulge in our suffering.
Again, it's yes. Sorry.
May I say?
Yes.
Because it's
it's Krishna coming as a bumblebee.
It's so important in the context of like trauma therapy or psychotherapy that a psychotherapy doesn't indulge or lose himself in the suffering of his client.
He maintains some.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that he's not compassionate or empathic. The same thing. So Krishna, you said Krishna never comes to ignorance, is never in ignorance. So to be in ignorance means to make the suffering of the other person my suffering and try to get something back from it. So Krishna is immune. And that is also the same time he's respecting our own free will, because he says it's your life. And you are this splendid soul, and it's your life. So I don't want to live your life. Therefore, he doesn't allow himself, so to say, to get immersed in the suffering of the other person, but he can feel that suffering. And he can help the person, like a good psychotherapy will do, to empower the other person to find his or her own solution to the problem.
Thank you for bringing that analogy, which again, many times analogies help to further clarify that. So I personally agree with that. And we can have a difference of opinion here. Again, I'm not here trying to, especially with the next one, when I'm going to omniscience, probably we'll have a difference of opinion here.
But I think he brought one aspect.
Because for me,
important.
Again, I'm trying to be clear. It's Krishna is empathizing, is connecting with our suffering, is understanding, he's helping. But at the same time, I will say that Krishna undergoes illusion compromises who Krishna is, because over and over again we hear he's beyond illusion, he's beyond the gunas. Now, he himself in the Gita said, you can only transcend the gunas by surrendering to me. And what's the implication? That I am beyond the gunas. So if you surrender to someone who is beyond the gunas, you can be beyond the gunas. But if Krishna will come under the influence of the gunas, then that's a problem. That makes a problem for the idea of who God is. So in that sense, I'm saying Krishna lacks the experience of what it means to be beyond under the influence of the gunas. Because if he will do so, that will contradict the definition of God as someone that is beyond illusion. And I will say that for the fact that he's beyond illusion is what allows him, as you were saying, to be transcendent and enlightened enough to connect with our illusion from a free place, from an enlightened place, and give proper advice. Because if he will undergo illusion, how much he can actually help us in our illusion.
Like a good
Like
a good therapist, he will see the trap his client is caught in much more clearly in one way. And therefore Krishna is also seeing much more clearly. And in this way, one could also say is much more empathic, or much more suffering, maybe even than the person who is trapped in illusion. But he doesn't identify with it.
Which is one of the symptoms of illusion, right? Like when you are under illusion, you are totally engrossed in I am this, I am that, this is happening. So
and he couldn't help.
That's Avatar Prabhu. Any thoughts? We are sharing. It's not any type of battle, debate, or anything. We are just sharing thoughts.
Just trying to get these things together.
And it's ongoing process. Again, it's not about reaching the conclusive point and end of the conversation. We are churning the ocean together.
Because
I myself, I mean, I'm hearing all of you, and it brings, that's actually, to be honest, that's the intention for me doing classes, sometimes based on my own book, not so much like I'll talk on my book, but it's like continue to develop the things that I'm writing about. It's not, for me, this is not like any final words. It's just, okay, I wrote something, and by sharing and new things come, it's like, wow, now I'm like, I have to re-edit my book 3,000 times and make a second edition, adding so much of the, of course, you can always do that ever, and you never publish any book because there's always more. So yeah, just to clarify the spirit for me, and I'm glad that for all of us of this type of gatherings, right?
Yeah. It's for me just a new aspect. I've never heard it described.
Yeah.
It's like interesting to think about and to figure out how does this fit in with the rest of the statements.
Yeah, because again, some of these ideas are in a good way challenging, because for one idea to make sense, we have to explain that in a way that many other ideas also continue to make sense. Like we were saying yesterday, again, God is omnipotent. I have nothing against that, but you have to play out the implications of that in a way that doesn't cancel other ideas that have to remain in place. Like we say, the soul's agency or free will. If I play out omnipotence to the point that I have no longer free will, that's not correct. No. So how to unpack omnipotence in a way that free will remains there, that love as a voluntary decision remains there, that every other thing remains coherent. Yes. That's a sometimes a complicated exercise, because sometimes we just, God is omnipotent, Krishna can do whatever he likes, he can cancel his own existence and our own existence, no more free will, he can't stop being loved. No, that's not how it works.
I mean, it may be a complicated exercise.
Yeah.
But I think it's a necessary
exercise. Totally.
Because without getting into this, I don't think you will be able to understand who or what God is.
Yeah, totally. I will say that's one of the best ways to engage our faculties. Again, we are trying to think about this with a new logic, but consume our faculties in trying to get a proper picture of the divine. So all this is for me what Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran brings, like listening, speaking, and then Smaran, like thinking about that, contemplating and being engaged in that.
I feel that there is one reality, there is one God, one reality, and so many different aspects, and we always long for coherence. How does that fit in?
Yeah. And again, it's an ongoing journey, an ongoing conversation, because Krishna is ever evolving. Okay, let's go to the next one. This may be even more challenging than the other one. Now comes, like you were saying yesterday, Shwatar Prabhu, like, okay, Nrsimhadev with the garland on intestines and Prahlad Maharaj finding beauty in that, and then praying for, let's create a little bit more of stirring. So the devotee will say, stirring of the dal. Let's go to God's omniscience. So this particular key paradigm shift says, God's omniscience is dynamic. And the explanation says, in the Bhakti tradition, and when I say my book Bhakti tradition, I'm referring to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and clarify that, because there are many Bhakti traditions also, with different perspectives. In the Bhakti tradition, God's omniscience is portrayed as dynamic and relational rather than absolute, highlighting a divine who cannot fully comprehend the limitless nature of his own love and glories. Already mentioned that briefly. This partial knowledge reflects the infinite, ever-expanding depths of divine love, which even God continuously discovers anew. So, as I was speaking yesterday about, again, God is omnipotent, but that doesn't mean that he can do anything and everything, canceling other things. We can also talk about God's omniscience in its own way, in a similar way. Like I mentioned, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Krishna cannot fathom the limit of his own glories. So his omniscience, if omniscient, you will say he knows everything at every moment, in every way. But the Bhagavatam is saying his glories are always expanding. So there's some interesting quote from Prabhupada in this regard. I have to find it here. It's very interesting. It's kind of funny also how he uses the word. Let me share it with you. Where it is. Oh. Bear with me, please. I'm not finding it. Give me 1 second. Because it's very much connected to this point. Measure thing. Yes, here it is. Srila Prabhupada's commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6.36. For those who do not believe me, Krishna Bhumi does not believe me, so she's writing the verse. Good. She's honest about it. So Prabhupada says, and again, talking about all that we are talking in the context of omniscience, if you will, the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again, and then again the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more, and as such there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Interesting, right? That's Prabhupada's words in the Bhagavatam. So that somehow relates to what I'm mentioning here about God's omniscience. No, God's Krishna's omniscience. This is it's growing. For me, a very unique aspect of that dynamic omniscience, if you want to call it, is this form of Sri Chaitanya again. Sri Chaitanya is Krishna realizing, I do not know what's going on in Radha's heart. Basically, that's one of the, if you go in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the three main in confidential purposes for the appearance of Mahaprabhu. The first one is to know the glories of Radha's heart. Second one is to know the beauty that she perceives in him. And third is to know the happiness she experiences in loving him. So three things that Krishna wants to know that he does not know. So again, it's very interesting because again, we are talking, I'm not denying that the scriptures say Krishna is omniscient, but we have then very quickly, we need to qualify in which way he's omniscient and in which ways he's not. You follow my point? So I'm trying to refer to scripture to make that point. And there is an interesting way, and I have not written about this in this book, but I'm writing about that in the next book. And I will share with you a paragraph of that, if you allow me, in which we can think of God's omniscience in a more nuanced way in relationship to us. It says like this. I'm talking about God's nuanced omnipotence. So it says, another essential facet of God's nuanced omnipotence is his omniscience, not as a rigid foreknowledge, but as living relational awareness. Some imagine divine omniscience as an all-encompassing script, every detail predetermined and locked into place. But a more tender vision unfolds, in which the sweet absolute knows all that has been, all that is, and now comes the main thing, and every real possibility of what might yet come to be. The future, in his view, is not a finished story, but a living canvas, shaped moment by moment through the dialogue between our choices and God's guiding presence. Anyhow, so my point with all this is, what I argue, and again, I know not every Gaudiya Vaishnava may agree with me, but I know some who does, it is Krishna knows everything that happened in the past, everything that happened is happening in the present, and every single possibility that may happen in the future, but he doesn't know what exactly will happen. Because if he will know, what's the meaning of our choices? They are already known in some way, so they're already predetermined. Do you follow my point? So in that sense, and again, there are differences of opinions in our tradition, and now this may be again new ideas to contemplate. But one perspective will be the future is open. In other ways, the future is already somehow predetermined, at least in God's mind, he knowing what will happen exactly in every way. Or again, in his omniscience, he knows every possible thing that could happen, but he doesn't know exactly what will happen, because that's up to us according to our free will and decision. You follow my point? So that's a nuance also that we can include in the idea of omniscience as dynamic.
Otherwise, we couldn't conquer him.
Exactly.
We could never conquer him because he knew, and it's boring for him.
Yes, it's boring.
Yeah, it's completely
It's
boring.
like reading a book and knowing already what's
you read
the
the
end,
last
or you
page,
look
like
at
I
the
did.
film
Yeah,
and you already know what's
everything is spoiled.
yeah, it's spoiled.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my book. If our freedom is genuine, then it must carry the capacity to birth something truly new, something not dictated by fate or karma, but born out of the soul conscious intention. So anyhow, many things about that, and these topics I know there are dangerous topics because they can trigger a conversation for 3 more lifetimes, and Patrak has a point in that regard.
I just like it how you put it in another lecture. You compared it to a chess game, basically, to a chess master. You
can elaborate the example because I don't remember what I said.
The person on the other side of the table makes a move, and the chess master knows because of that move any possible outcome that is the result from that move, but he doesn't again exactly know the complete outcome of the game yet, because each new move implies new options, but he knows all the options. And I quite liked it. It helped me a lot to kind of understand the idea.
And if Krishna would know every outcome, then there would be no surprise. So how is love possible without surprise? And you say it's moving like a snake. So
yeah, again, that's another point. It's if God knows everything in advance, what everything will happen, he will be faking when he looks excited. Right? Because I already know it was going to go in this direction. So yeah. Oh yeah, wow, surprise. But we know that that's not the case, right? That there's these moments in the bottom, I don't know, Krishna is running from Yashoda and he's crying and he's being tired and he's afraid, and Kunti in the praise of Kunti said he's not faking any of that.
Yes.
Right? He's not making a show. I'm trying. Okay, I have to be crying now. I have to look afraid. So my mom's Vatsalya increases. Again, he's really into it. It's all happening in the moment, right?
So many devotees are thinking that actually Krishna is faking. He's somewhat detached from this, because philosophically, really.
So our God is fake. We worship a fake God.
I personally often experience the devotees after, maybe it's covered, but they are thinking in that way that Krishna just makes it up for the pleasure of his devotees. It's not really authentic, but I could never refer to that.
So again, this shows clearly we are talking about Anartha-nivritti, uprooting misconceptions, false belief, because those thinking really can get in the way of relating to the actual Krishna, to the actual person. So
Damodar would be very happy if we could hear that now.
This is being recorded, so Anna is here, so Anna will tell Damodar. We trust that. Please, Anna, we're giving some homework here, and but yeah. So when we say that Krishna doesn't know some things, he's not knowing. It's not like limitation or ignorance, but it's wonder.
Yes.
It's the possibility of wonder, because again, And it goes back to this idea. If we want to make God perfect in everything, we end up limiting him in so many ways. So how perfect that is. So now God knows everything in advance, and the price of that is no wonder. Oh my God, that was not the plan. So we have played out omniscience too much, too far, right? So you have to express omniscience to the point that it doesn't get in the way of wonder. No? Because even in our tradition, we say rasa sar chamatkar. The essence of rasa is wonder. And we say raso vaisaha. Krishna is rasa. If Krishna is rasa, and the essence of rasa, and all this is coming now, and I will add that to my book for sure. Okay, I'll have to take notes later, but I'm doing that now for a moment, please. That's how a book is written, actually. Anyhow, I'll check later. But you follow the logic of Krishna. Scripture say Krishna is rasa, rasa vaisaha. Scripture say rasa sar chamatkar. The essence of rasa is wonder. So if Krishna is rasa and the essence of rasa is wonder, the essence of Krishna is wonder. That's his essence, not just like some peripheral quality. That's his essence. And so what if we speak about Krishna being omniscient, it has to be explained in a way that it doesn't cancel his essence, which is wonder. But as you give this example, we can, I'll say, play out too much, take it too far, the idea of he knows everything in advance, so he's faking this, there is no wonder, everything is predetermined, scripted. What kind of God is that? That's not all attractive. That's not the all attractive we are describing.
From a material position, we think that a secure place has to be static, so that we know what to expect. So we come there and we know what to expect, but at the same time, it will be frozen, a frozen state.
Yeah. So again, omniscience, we understand by omniscience full knowing, but full knowing also entails, when we speak about omniscience, it has to include wonder, because wonder is a higher knowing.
Yes.
It's a relational knowing.
Yes, it's a personal.
So that has to be an aspect of omniscience. No? So that keeps the whole thing vibrant and alive and surprising, and it's a crucial aspect of knowing something. Because if you just speak about knowing without wonder, surprise, it's just very boring knowing. It's just very informational. It's like God is a repository of information. He's omniscient. He knows everything. It's like a storage, a hard disk. And he knows every fact, past, present, future. No wonder, no surprise. He knows everything already. It's like, that's not the knowing we want.
It's lifeless and loveless.
Yeah.
Senseless.
Yeah.
Senseless,
Yeah.
lifeless, loveless.
Yeah. And the ultimate knowing in our tradition, the ultimate knowing is love. No? The highest.
You're like programs.
Mm-hmm.
You have no chance.
Yeah, again.
So how can we be a part and parcel of him when we have no chance?
And again, we have free will, and free will implies there has to be place for decision and surprise, and again, we are talking about omniscience, which has to do with knowledge, awareness. And the scripture Gita said, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam, the highest type of knowledge is love. It's bhakti. No? So again, in love, there is so much wonder and surprise and newness. So knowledge has to be coherent to that, because the definition of knowledge has to be ultimately the definition of love. And love is always new, ever fresh, full of wonder and surprise. Rasa sar chamatkar, that's its essence. So again, these are very necessary exercises to unpack the implications of all that, and to realize, oh my gosh, we have the potential of go very much in the wrong direction and end up misconstruing a Krishna that does not exist, apart from in our minds, right?
If you think about this, then also this has an aspect of cheating, like in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says to Arjuna, I have explained all this to you. Think about it. Do what you like.
Yeah.
But actually, I know already how you will decide.
But I'm being kind. I have
you can decide, but actually, I already know how you will decide.
Yeah.
What is this kind of? This is dishonest. This is cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretending I give you a choice.
Yeah.
But actually, you haven't first because I already know.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And we are. Did have you heard what they said? Those connected online. What that's what our Prabhu say? Okay, thank you. I don't want them to miss what. So yeah, that's a great point. Because again, all the price of all that unconsciously even is like we will think again, Krishna is cheating. Krishna, and yeah, Krishna is a cheater and a liar in the lila in certain way. That's a different thing. But in the way we may think is dangerous because how will I fully trust that person? I think he's faking it. He's doing it just, but actually he's meaning something else. How can I give my heart fully to someone that I feel is a cheater in the negative sense? And again, none of us will consciously even think Krishna is cheating me. But if we entertain some of these contradictory ideas unconsciously, that may be there, and that may create an unconscious fear of fully surrendering to him because he's not consistent, so to say, with his nature, what he says. So anyhow.
So our aim should actually be to surprise Krishna and be surprised by Krishna.
Oh yeah. He wants that also. Again, he's all into lila. Lila is we don't know what's going on at the next step. It's full surprise. So again, when Krishna describes the soul in the Gita, Ascharya 3 times, he's saying you are wonderful. Which means if something is wonderful to me, it means it's creating wonder for me. Basically, right? So here Krishna is experiencing wonder, surprise, marvel, whatever word, astonishment at witnessing the soul, who we are. So just that verse is setting the whole thing in context. Krishna said the soul is wonderful, which means Krishna says, I experience wonder in witnessing who you are. I'm surprised by you, by the very nature of the Atma. So if Krishna is surprised by the nature of the Atma, no wonder we will be in wonder at witnessing Krishna's own nature or our own nature. So at the end of the day, it's all wonder in every direction. Krishna's in wonder at seeing himself in a mirror, seeing his own nature, seeing the soul, seeing even the material nature in the Bhagavad, and I mentioned that in the last part of this book. As the soul is described as Ascharya in the Bhagavad Gita, material energy is described with that exact same word in the Bhagavatam, Ascharya, wonderful, a source of awe. So ultimately, we are entering to an enchanted land, a state of consciousness in which everything is a source of wonder. That's a good way of describing our dharma. Your dharma is to be at wonder, at everything. That's Krishna's dharma. That's his daily life. That's why he's all attractive. He's an interesting person to relate to. Not a fake one, not a boring one, not a predetermined one. That's not exciting. Lila couldn't go on if things will be like that. It's newness at every moment. It's surprise. It's uncertainty. What will happen at the next moment? We don't know. Right? So that's way more real. That's how life works, operates. Yeah. Wow, interesting. I didn't know we will end up in this place while talking on omniscience. I thought, well, I will bring this omniscient idea. Maybe you will be all like, Maharaj, we all disagree with you. Move to the next one, please. We're all excited exploring implications of wonder and omniscience. Thank you for that.
My Prasanna wanted to say that.
Oh, sorry.
More the idea that what we are describing now, what Krishna is, can we just all put that on what we are really as a soul? I cannot put it in words, maybe still yet completely, but
you are in wonder now.
Yeah, you said before, no, love is, as a Krishna is wonder. No, I cannot put it in words, but for me it's so crazy to feel right now that if we decided, or if we once feel a spark of that love or wonder, then we can fully trust that we will reach it once. And if we are walking that path really sincerely and honestly, then we have to trust that we will reach it. There's no doubt for that. So all qualities, what we, maybe it's too extreme to say all qualities, what we describe about Krishna, in a small quantity, we have the potential.
Yeah, of course, not to compare ourselves to Krishna in every sense of the term, but yeah, Rupa Goswami makes that case describing the qualities of Krishna and saying in certain degree these are in the soul. Of course, some others are qualities unique to Krishna, the sweetness of his flute and things like that. But yeah, there's lots of correlation, and I appreciate the point you made, Maya Prasangan, of having this hope and confidence in, okay, if I want to attain that by Krishna's mercy and grace. I mean, that we will explore that tomorrow, but I'm giving the trailer of it, which one of the ways as we were talking these days is to think, okay, I'm doing bhakti. I'm already doing what I want to do forever. Bhakti is the goal, and I'm doing bhakti. So in one sense, I arrived at the goal or achieved the goal. But again, you can never fully arrive to that goal because ever evolving. So in one sense, I'm already there, and I will never end up fully arriving. I continuously continue to arrive. So in that sense, and I will be talking about more of that tomorrow, we could say, I'm already saved. No, I know it's a shocking statement, but in one sense, I'm already saved because I'm doing what I want to do forever.
Yeah, that sense doesn't matter how many lives I still have,
That's disappeared, that consideration. No? Because and that's why our church say in bhakti we do not care for that. In other words, saying if you really practice bhakti properly, that stops being an issue. Lifetimes, liberation, blah blah blah. You're already doing what you want to do forever. And as mentioned in my book, if you have a glimpse of that, like, oh, I could be doing this forever. Like, I don't know, I'm having that sensation now. I'm sharing with you all this. I'm okay doing this for eternity. So if you have those glimpses, which I trust you all had at some point different ways, that shows in one sense you're already there. In those moments you're already in eternity because you already feel I'm okay doing this forever, and you're already doing that. So you're already saved in one way. And the actual question then is, if I'm already saved, for us the idea is not to be saved from something, but the real question is what I'm saved for. That becomes the question now for us. Not so much when I will be saved. You're already saved. Saved from what? No, not from, but I'm saved for something positive. Saved from is negative. I'm saved from this miserable world of these. No, I'm saved for what? For offering my heart in newer and deeper ways, in loving dedication without end ad infinitum. You are saved for that. Okay, let's go to we have two more. Okay.
It's just the last thing.
You're insatiable, all of you.
There's something which really thinking since a long time about. I
Please.
just can't figure it out really. It's just too far out.
Okay.
I mean, here in the material world, we are accustomed to think in terms of past, present, and future.
Okay.
Apparently, in the spiritual world, there's no influence of time.
Next topic is God is not completely timeless, just in case. He's omniscient. He has some capacity of anticipating the next key paradigm shift. So there's something with omniscience going on here. Sorry.
No, if it's anyway coming, then
No, I don't want to interrupt, but finish the point. I just want to relate that it's, again, you touch upon the next
it's
one.
because, you were just saying Krishna, when we talk about Krishna being omniscient, yes, he knows all that happened in the past. He knows all that is going on at present. And potentially, he knows in the future what may happen depending on how we decide on different issues and situations. Yes, that seems to make sense within the context of the material world, because there we make these differences.
Yeah.
But if in the spiritual world there is no influence of time, then what is the relevance to this statement for eternal life, for for the spiritual existence, spiritual reality. How can we put this together? Because our idea is to leave the world of duality, leave the material world of limited conceptions of time and space. But why do we want to take them to the spiritual reality if they are just part of the material world?
Yeah, thank you. So that takes us to the next key paradigm shift. And again, I will briefly say something. Your question deserves lots of elaboration, and it's a very important one. So we will share something, but yeah, if it doesn't sound like a promotion of my book, in the chapter here, I spent some considerable time with God as timeless or not timeless. So I'm saying here, God is not completely timeless. And the explanations say, while the sweet absolute exists beyond temporal limitations, such as birth, aging, and death, he experiences the flow of time everlastingly through his ever-evolving love. So again, this may be another one that requires time and unpacking and unfolding. I'm trying to see the part where I'm talking about that. Because we have this idea of time and space. And in one sense, in the Lila, let's go, and as much as we can speak and think in words and thoughts about that, which is beyond that, but there is a sense of time. Time there is not in the same way like here, that time is taken to decay and sickness and death, for example, but time plays a role, another form of time. In Greek, they have this expression of chronos and kairos. Maybe you've heard about that. So chronos means like chronological time, chronos. Linear time as we see here, but kairos is a sense of sacred time, where time is nourishing a sacred unfolding. And let's put it that way. So in the Lila, we hear about the eternal day of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So there is a sense of time. Actually, we have the hours, Krishna, from 3:36 to 6 in the morning, we have this period from 6 to 8:24, this period from 8:24 to 10:48, this, and so on. And Krishna does this, and there's a sense of, I don't know, even of seasons passing. Of course, how that takes place in eternity, we may not be able to figure out here, right, in between our ears with this part. But we find those descriptions. In my book, I refer in this connection to Mahanambrata Brahmachari. Maybe you never heard about him. He's a Gaudiya Vaishnava from the beginning of previous century. He had some correspondence with the likes of Thomas Merton and others, and he wrote some interesting books, one especially called Vaishnava Vedanta. Can I share one quote that I mentioned here from him? That's interesting. He says, for example, eternity is beyond past, present, and future, not because it does not move, but because it is full and complete. In his view, eternity's motion exists not due to any unrealized potential, but because of the very momentum of its perfection. Again, he's philosophical, poetic. So he speaks about the moving eternity. And he describes it, and there comes a quote just to finish. This moving eternity is a never-ending process in the course of which it becomes fuller and fuller at every moment with newer and newer values and richness. The temporal order moves because the equilibrium has been disturbed, but the eternal experience moves because the spiritual equilibrium has been perfectly attained. So, anyhow, there's more to say. But for us, eternity it's not devoid of before and after. I mean, of course, it's difficult to say, because, of course, we will say, okay, eternity is an eternal present moment. But we also know that in the Lila, Radha and Krishna will be recalling things that happened before or looking after to something in the future. But again, time is operating in a different way. There's no sense of time at all. There's the sun, there is the moon coming, the sun coming day and night. They're all devotees. They're all serving the lila. I don't know, maybe this doesn't help at all, but it's there are some ideas in connection to the role of time, like kairos, like sacred time, transcendental time, as opposed to how time is perceived on this side of the equation. Again, at the end of the day, as Srila Prabhupada once said, when someone was asking, and I'm not saying this is similar to yours, but someone one time was asking too many questions about how things operate in the spiritual world. No? Like someone was even asking, like, do they go to the bathroom or things like that? and many things. And Prabhupada say, like, why don't you go there and find it for yourself? So I like it. No, I mean, it's a good way to, of course, we think as much as we can and we try to understand, but at the end of the day, it's like, go there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say certain things are only solved in samadhi. No? Like we can talk and think, but at one point you need to enter non-dual awareness, devotional trance, deep meditation, and what didn't make sense in certain ways makes sense only then and there, right? So I think, at least for me, who have the tendency to try to think, I don't say it's bad, but there's good to also say, okay, Maharaj, pause, enter your prayer chamber, go to samadhi. Other things will be solved only in that way. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm not trying to solve your life query.
I did hear one time an explanation of one devotee. He said, yes, the way how we think about time, the influence of time in the material world, it has this negative notion. That means, oh, I'm doing something now and it's very exciting and I'm really enjoying, I'm very happy, but I know it will be over soon. So it has this negative aspect that enjoyment is getting away, leaving, moving away. But so this time as we know it in the material world, it has a negative touch, negative influence. So there's time in the spiritual world, but without this negativity.
Yeah.
So that helps a little bit.
Yeah. Krishna,
anyway.
And Krishna in the Gita says, Kalo asmi, I'm time. So if he relates himself with time, there must be a positive way of relating to time because he is time. So how to conceive time as Krishna's presence in my life? No? Even from us being here, not in the lila, and time may create even old age. Let's put it that way. Time creates an old age, disease, eventual leaving the body. That's not even negative either, if we learn to relate to that in a way that is insightful. So how Krishna in the form of time here is nourishing me or teaching me, and eventually in the lila, I will relate to Krishna's time in a different way. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic. How to
may I?
Yeah. One idea that came is just that eternity is not escape from time, right? For me, it will be more like the fullness within time. Yeah.
So I was thinking about this I had a picture in mind. There is eternity. It's like a column, a static thing, eternity, and the material world in a way of explosion evolves around it in spirals. It's freezing and it's getting up and it's always and there is also an implosion into eternity. If we look deeper into eternity, there's also this spiral going on. There is time going on, but it's a playtime, something like that. It's not a devastating time as the material time, destroying time. It's for imploding, because implosion also means that the energy gets more and more and more enriched and intense. Yeah. So there is this spiral going on. In eternity, inwards from eternity. And this is Krishna's time. This is Krishna's Leela.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I have to finish officially the lecture, but I would like to just, leave me a while to contemplate all that. That's interesting. But yeah, and I'm even thinking of even the passing of time here could be related to birth and death. Birth and death, birth and death. But in the spiritual world, also there's a form of birth and death. Not that the gopas and gopis are dying, but it's a death to a version of myself and a birth to a new version of myself in loving dedication, right? Like ongoing. Even if they are pure devotees and are in the spiritual world, still there is newer degrees of perfection to attain, and that implies letting go, shedding the old skin. So time creates birth and death in one way here. Time creates birth and death in another way there. In the context, of course, of Lila and full dedication. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Can I say something more?
You can.
And Swami explained it like that. He said, in the material world, we have the time is the source, which destroys all. And when we do something, we know it's over. It's like a destroyer. But this is here, and we enjoy, and we have time for that. But in the spiritual world, there's also time, but the source is rasa. So the rasa is the source, and it can expand the time or limit that. And it's also like in Vrindavan, he said, because he said Vrindavan is like a lotus, because we asked, they went from there to there by feet.
Oh, yeah.
So long. And we asked, how is it possible? He said, Vrindavan is like a lotus, and because it's full of rasa and not time is the controlling force. So he explained it like that.
Time and space operate in a way that facilitates the necessity of the lila.
But both is Krishna. Time is Krishna, and Krishna is also rasa. But these are the material and the spiritual contradictions. Yeah,
maybe I won't say contradiction, but just but how it operates here is giving us a hint of how it operates there from another perspective, but indirectly it's telling us about say sometimes like an inverted reflection, but still is reflecting something. Let's go to the last one. We have one last one, which somehow is a summary of all that we have been talking about so far. So in one sense, I won't elaborate much because we have been already into that. And the last one is that in order to know God, we first probably need to unknow God, like to unlearn, as we are trying to do, unlearn things that we learned that were not accurate, to properly learn who He actually is. So the last key paradigm shift says, unknow God to know God. God, as an eternally expansive being, can be endlessly comprehended. So when we say God cannot be understood, that doesn't mean that He cannot be understood. It means that He can be understood endlessly. Follow? So that's not the same. It's not like you cannot know anything about Krishna. No, you can know a lot and experience a lot, but there's no end to that. So in that sense, He cannot be fully. To truly understand Him, we must release outdated concepts and embrace an evolving insight into the divine, a paradox where knowing requires unknowing, and where love's fullness is found in its boundless mystery. So again, when we say unknow God, it's not a form of laziness, as I say before. I will just not think and not know anything. No, it takes lots of work to unknown things or to unknown patterns. I mean, all that we are doing, Anartha-nivritti, in many ways is a way of unlearning stuff. Like the famous story, like two boys go to a music teacher and they say, we'll come to learn piano. Okay, so once the teacher asks, do you know anything about piano? No, zero. Okay, I will charge you whatever, 10 euro per class. How about you? Oh yeah, I taught myself piano for 15 years. Okay, I will charge you 50 euro per class. And it's like, but I already playing for 15 years. Yeah, but you taught yourself, and who knows what wrong ideas you got about what. So we first need to do the unlearning work with you, which takes more time and more energy, So again, to unknow God is at least to remain open. Again, we're talking about God being ever evolving, ever expansive. We cannot take Krishna for granted. The moment we say Krishna is this, he became something else the next minute. In one sense, he's expanding. So we have our ideas about Krishna, but as we say these days, our ideas about Krishna are not equivalent to Krishna. No, my ideas about God are not God, or are not only God. I may have a correct idea about Krishna, but it doesn't mean that Krishna is only my idea about him. He's already becoming something else. So I have to keep the field open, the door open for Krishna to be all that he wants to be in my life now. And that's kind of for me of the daily invitation. What Krishna wants to be for you, for us today. Because Krishna is trying to offer himself in relationship to us every moment. And at every moment is a new level of him giving to us. So what's all that Krishna wants to become in my life today? Yesterday, it's another thing. Today, tomorrow, it's another thing. Now, again, he's not one thing, one fixed substance. So we may have had a beautiful experience of Krishna 5 minutes ago, but now Krishna is already available for a new experience. Again, that's how exciting he is. That reminds me of a very nice quote by Richard Rohr. He will say, our last experience of God is frequently the greatest obstacle to the next experience of God. Very interesting. My last experience of God generally becomes the greatest obstacle to the next one, because I may get attached to, okay, I experienced this. This is Krishna. But the next moment is something else. So if I'm too attached to this, I cannot experience him in his new updated version, right? So my last experience of God, as beautiful as that is, and we can recall that, can also become a great obstacle to the next experience of Krishna. Follow my point? So there has to be a willingness to let go also of certain things. As beautiful as they are, we cannot be nostalgic. Sometimes I hear devotees, in the old days, in the beginning, this was like this. And I'm not saying it was not beautiful, but we are in another moment. It's like if you are with your wife and say, in our honeymoon period, you remember how nice. I mean, there's a moment to speak about that, a few minutes, but you cannot just base your whole relationship in how beautiful was your honeymoon 30 years ago. Your wife is like, yeah, it's beautiful, but now we have 3 kids and we have all these things. How to make that beautiful? What's a new level of beauty to be discovered in that? So the same with Krishna in one sense. It's a relationship like any other relationship. So we have to be willing to let go and to rediscover Krishna for all that he wants to be in the here and now.
That is ever changing.
And that is ever changing. That keeps the whole journey exciting. Again, there's no end point, like there's nothing new, no new experience of Krishna. That's what becomes a problem, actually. And that sometimes can help us to understand how to say. I've heard so many times, and I've gone through that myself. Sometimes you can have your faith crisis or your experience of, I don't feel Krishna present in my life. But sometimes when we say that, we are attaching an idea of what it means to have Krishna present in my life, because we experience him present in our life in a certain way in the past. So we have put a frame around that. This means Krishna being present in my life. So now that is not happening. But that doesn't mean he's not present. Probably he's closer than ever, but I'm just too attached to how he was present 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago. You follow my point? So I may feel Krishna is absent. He went somewhere else. And probably he's closer. But since I'm just expect him to be in the same place he was in the past, and he's not, he disappeared. No, probably he's getting closer. but I'm too attached to the nostalgic picture I have of him from how he was in the past. You follow my point?
Yeah.
So we are unable to rediscover and find him where he actually is. And sometimes, as I like to say, Krishna is so close that we lose sight of him. Because that's his tendency, to get closer, more intimate. So he's so close that, where is Krishna? I don't see him. We are looking too far. He's too close. So maybe having these ideas, this is a form of unknowing God, like releasing certain ideas of who Krishna is, what an experience of Krishna is, and rediscovering him and rediscovering his new proximity, new level of intimacy in our lives.
As meditation for chakra also.
Yeah,
discover
of course.
every day your chakra new,
Yeah.
not fixing one.
Because if not, in your japa, you are increasing the anartha, in the sense of this is what Krishna is, this is what an experience of Krishna means. It's not happening. Where is Krishna? Where's that? And Krishna is willing to be present in a new way, but if we don't enter into the space with that openness, we won't have the experience. And after multiply that for many days, and it's like, oh, this is not working. I stop chanting, or worse, I'm not working. I must be doing something really bad, and maybe doing something bad, not bad, but I'm just be carrying these ideas to that space. That's it. I'm not saying you're really bad. It's just we may be carrying some misconceptions to our practice, and that gets in the way of the experience, basically. Right?
So if I have the experience that Krishna is not here, this is just another experience that Krishna is here if I'm opening up.
Of course, because Krishna is omnipresent by definition. So how can he not be here?
Yeah. So it's even a proof, a philosophical proof.
Yeah.
It's like, I have no experience of Krishna, so
Yeah.
I'm talking about Krishna.
By saying Krishna is not present, it means I'm absent.
Yes, I'm absent.
So I like to say Krishna is omnipresent. If I cannot perceive the presence of someone who is omnipresent, what does it mean that I am omni-absent? He's absolutely present, but I cannot find him. That means I am absolutely absent. I'm absolutely looking somewhere else, who knows what. It's not speak about his degree of presence. It speaks about my degree of absence. Not to feel guilty and chastise ourselves, but just to align and say, it's up to me. It's not that Krishna is not doing his job, so to say. I have to do mine. So, yeah. Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say again, change your angle of vision. Oh, again and again and again, recalibrate. Right? So yeah, this is basically what we are trying to do in all these meetings in the morning. Anartha-nivritti, in one sense, means that. Recalibrate, get rid of a false value, another false belief, dethrone this false idea. Then after some time, the false idea went back to the throne, bring it back. It went back in a more subtle way that seems different, but it's the same thing. Bring it back, get a more clear picture. And yeah, the more we do that, the more our bhajana kriya becomes nishta, becomes firm and dynamic and stable. Dynamic but stable, because there are not so many things getting in the way of it.
You can put your heart in.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like a beautiful game of hide and seek that we're playing.
Yeah, constantly. That's a way of depicting Krishna's dynamic.
Because you have to think of him, where could he be?
Yeah, haven't heard Patrick is saying, to me, it looks like a beautiful game of hide and seek, he's saying, sir.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Because you have to be aware of him, you have to think of him, where could he be today?
Yeah.
In which form can he show himself to me today?
It's a constant.
Think of him like.
Yeah, it's a constant journey of rediscovery. And that is a pattern for every relationship. It's not just me and Krishna, but that's how any relationship can be sustainable. I don't know, if you're married with someone, if you're not constantly rediscovering each other, at one point you are no longer relating to each other, because both parts are, that's true, because both parts are constantly becoming something different. But if you have put the other person in a box and the other person did the same, and you just relate to that version, which is totally outdated, no wonder after a few weeks or months it's like, who is this total stranger, or one will feel that because you are relating to someone that I'm not, because you are related to me as I was in a box, and maybe I was not even that was your idea about me. So it's any sustainable relationship, and not only couple but any relationship, that's the price to pay. You have to be willing to rediscover each other, and that's a work that you have to do. It doesn't happen in autopilot. It's time invested in talking and listening, as we are doing these days, and okay, that's who you are. Okay, that's who you are. Okay, I had my idea of who you were, but now that I'm paying enough attention, I'm getting a clear glimpse who you actually are. But tomorrow you are someone different, so we need to talk again. And I think that's very realistic to work on that in our relationships, so we can get a realistic picture of how our relationship with Krishna works. Because if not, it may be too heady, only Krishna and me, and this works like that, but we are not applying all that among us. That's why always in our tradition, the two things cannot be separate. Your relationship with Krishna, as we spoke, has to be mirroring your relationship with everyone else. We cannot separate entirely the two. So yeah, it's challenging. Again, I know I'm not using the word easy, but that's the only way it works, to work on relationships, and because everything is relational, reality is relational, everything is interconnected. So how to remain in constant rediscovery, which means constant wonder, and which means life is alive, makes sense, there's meaning. If not, and it's very important the times we're living, because we're living in postmodern times where the main narrative is there's no inherent meaning and purpose in anything. That's the main philosophy of the time we are living, predominant more and more. Like, there's no inherent meaning and purpose. There's more and more crises of depression and anxiety and suicide, because we live in a disenchanted universe, no inherent meaning and purpose, wonder, all that stuff. That things, coping mechanisms that people create to make reality survivable. That's the philosophy of many people, consciously or unconsciously. So, and we live in those times, so we may be affected by all that unconsciously. So we need to be very on guard and remain aware of all the things which are so important. So, okay. Something else? We feel satisfied, complete for today. We'll continue sharing, of course. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the next chapter. We have gone so far through love and God. The next one is, it's our turn, the jiva, the soul, and a few key paradigm shifts about who we are, how we see ourselves properly. So we will do that. And later today in the evening, we will be having more private circle sharing. So thanks so much to all of you for being present, and thanks so much for those connected online over there. Hope to see you soon these days as well. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaudiya Vaishnav Guru Parampada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Vancha Kalpatarupischa Gita Sindhurya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namah Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Hari Hari.